Hey there, traveler. Welcome to my channel, the place where soft rain falls, stories breathe slowly, and your mind can finally let go. If your heart is a little heavy tonight, or your thoughts just want to hush, you're in the right place. I'm here to tell you a quiet story. A gentle, bittersweet one. It's called, She Folded Stars for Me. Every word in this story is folded, like a little paper star. And maybe, just maybe, there's a wish inside one of them for you, too. So, my friend, close your eyes. If you can, let the rain do its thing. And let's begin. Part 1. The jar on the shelf. I found it by accident. It was tucked in a shoebox, between some old scarves and a faded notebook I barely remembered keeping. The little glass jar was still intact. Dusty, sure. The cork top was crooked, and the ribbon around its neck had frayed into a tired string. But the stars inside the folded paper stars were all still there. Dozens of them. Maybe more. Each one delicate, a bit yellowed from time. Some were inked with tiny letters. Some had doodles. Some were blank. All were hers. And all of them were about me. That's what she told me once. She said, every star I fold is a wish. And every wish is something about you. At the time, I thought she was being poetic. Or maybe just overly sentimental. But now, holding the jar again after all these years, I wasn't so sure. I sat down on the old wooden floor of my new apartment. The moving boxes still unopened, the lamp flickering softly in the corner. Outside, it had started to rain. A soft, consistent drizzle that tapped gently against the window pane. Funny, isn't it how rain has a way of making memories louder. I turned the jar slowly in my hands. Some stars were slightly crushed from the pressure of time. Others still looked perfectly crisp, like she had folded them just yesterday. I remembered watching her fold them. She was always doing something with her hands. Cutting paper into neat strips. Folding carefully. Never rushing. Never distracted. She told me it helped her think. I wasn't sure if I believed that either. But maybe she just didn't want to sit still with her thoughts. I didn't either. Not now. Not with this jar. I picked one star at random. Pale blue. Soft creases. I didn't open it. I never have. Not even back then. She never asked me to. Maybe that was the point. Maybe the wishes only worked if they stayed hidden. Still, a part of me wanted to know. What had she wished for? What had she seen in me, all those years ago, worth folding into paper over and over again? Outside, thunder mumbled in the distance. The rain picked up a little, like it wanted to join the conversation. My name is Caleb, by the way. I'm 38. I've moved 6 times in the past 10 years. I drink my coffee black, and I still sleep on the left side of the bed. even when there's no one sleeping on the right. I don't collect much. Never really been the type. But I kept this not on purpose not because I couldn't let go. Just because it never felt right to throw it away. That, and because somewhere deep down, I always thought I'd need to see it again. Maybe when I was older. Or braver. Or lonelier. And tonight. Well, it was all three. The rain had slowed now. The kind of rhythm that made you breathe slower. I leaned back against a half-unpacked box of winter coats and stared at the ceiling. This new apartment smelled like pinewood floors and old paint. Nothing familiar yet. Nothing homey. Except for that jar. It still had that same weight in my hand. That same quiet gravity. I remember the day she gave it to me. She didn't hand it over dramatically. No speech. No teary confession. We were sitting in her bedroom, senior year of high school. Music was playing low from her ancient iPod. Something soft, probably the Shins or Iron and Wine. She reached behind a stack of notebooks and pulled out the jar like it was nothing. "Here," she said, almost offhandedly. "I've been making these for a while. You can have them now." Just like that. I asked what they were. She said, "Wishes." I rolled my eyes, like any teenage guy might. But she smiled, just a little. That kind of secret smile people give when they know they're giving you something much bigger than you realize. I asked her what they were about. "You," she said. And then she looked away. Fiddling with a bracelet on her wrist. I didn't ask more. I just took the jar, tucked it into my backpack, and forgot about it for a few weeks. Until she left. Until I missed her. Until one night I couldn't sleep, and I remembered it was still there. And just like tonight, I sat down in the dark with the jar in my lap, and wondered what those little stars could possibly hold. We all keep things we don't understand until we do. We all wait for meaning to catch up to memory. Sometimes it takes 10 years. Sometimes more. But when it comes, it lands soft. Like rain against your window at night. Like a folded paper star, still waiting to be opened. So, my friend, have you ever kept something long after it stopped making sense? Something small. Something that didn't take up much room, but still carried weight. If you have, then you already know how this story begins. And if you haven't yet, just listen. Because it's not really about the jar, or even the stars. It's about her, and what she left folded inside me. Part 2. Paper and Promises. I used to think the little things didn't matter. Paper scraps, string knots, loose ends. But she found meaning in every forgotten detail. Even the wrappers of candy we shared, she kept. And of course, the stars, those tiny origami wishes folded from strips of pastel paper. She had a routine. Every evening after brushing her hair, she'd sit cross-legged on the rug, back leaning against the bed, the jar beside her. I remember the crinkle of paper, the soft hum under her breath as she folded, each crease firm and careful. Sometimes, she'd pause and look out the window. Sometimes she'd whisper something into the star before folding it shut. "What do you say to them?" I asked once, leaning against the doorway, arms crossed. She looked up, startled, then smiled, the kind of smile that hides more than it shows. "I say the things I want to tell you, but don't." I laughed, thinking she was being dramatic. "Like what?" "That I left dishes in the sink again." She didn't answer right away. Just folded another star, this one yellow, and dropped it into the jar. Looking back, I wish I had pressed her, not laughed it off. I wish I had watched her hands more closely, noticed how the corners trembled some nights. There was a day, rainy, slow, filled with gray light. She sat by the window and made 15 stars. I know, because later, after she left, I counted 15 stars in one day. That must be been a hard day for her. I still don't know what happened that morning. I was tired, impatient. We argued about something, laundry, or plans I forgot. She stood at the doorway, keys in hand, her voice small. "Do you ever listen to me?" And I, already late, muttered something dismissive. She didn't slam the door, just closed it quietly. When I came back that night, the jar was gone from the windowsill. So was she. Weeks passed before I found the jar again. Hidden behind a box of old photographs, inside the top drawer of her desk. The stars were still there. Crisp, silent, patient. I opened one. Then another. And another. I hope he notices when I'm quiet. Today, I felt invisible. I love him even when he forgets to say goodnight. Her handwriting was small, careful, like she didn't want to take up too much space. And me, I had taken up all of it. Now I sit with the jar in my lap, its weight not in the glass, but in the words I never heard her say. I open another star. Then another. Each one is a paper promise I didn't know I was breaking. Part 3. Her first wish. It was a Thursday afternoon. Nothing special, not really. We'd just gotten out of chemistry class, and Elena was walking next to me, her satchel bouncing a little with each step. She always walked slightly ahead, like she was tugging the day forward herself. I remember the smell of autumn wet leaves, pencil shavings, a hint of her vanilla-scented hand lotion. We stopped by the front steps of the school. I was complaining about the pop quiz. She was smiling quietly, like she always did when she knew something I didn't. Then, without saying a word, she pulled something from her pocket and pressed it into my hand. A tiny paper star. Pale blue. Neatly folded. "What's this?" I asked, squinting at it. "A wish," she said. "For you. I made it last night." I rolled my eyes, half laughing. "Come on, Elena. You're not serious." I am, she said, her voice soft. Every star I fold, I make a wish about you. I didn't know what to say. There was something embarrassingly intimate about it. A girl giving me a star like that. A wish made in secret. It felt childish, and yet, she looked so serious. I tucked the star into my pocket, mostly just to avoid hurting her feelings. But that evening, I found myself pulling it out again. Holding it up to the lamp on my desk. Turning it in my fingers. It wasn't perfect. The fold lines were slightly uneven. One corner was bent just a bit too tightly. But I kept turning it, wondering, what had she wished for? The next day, she gave me another one. This one was yellow. She didn't say anything, just slipped it into my hand as we passed each other by the lockers. And again the day after that. Soon, I had 5. Then 10. I didn't know what to do with them, so I found an old Altoids tin and kept them in there. It rattled slightly when I walked. I never asked her what the wishes were. I told myself I didn't care. But I started noticing other things. Like how she always folded stars during study hall, her fingers working quickly under the desk. Or how she glanced at me sometimes while doing it. Maybe it should be felt awkward. Maybe I should be said something. But truth is, those stars became part of my day. A quiet little ritual. A rhythm. When I had a bad morning, she'd hand me a silver one. When I got a good grade, a gold. She never explained the colors. And I never asked. It was enough that she kept making them. One day, I forgot my lunch. I was sitting under the bleachers, pretending I wasn't hungry. She sat next to me, handed me a sandwich and a red star. For strength, she said. Strength. You looked like you needed it today. That's when I stopped thinking it was silly. I didn't say anything then. I just nodded. But when I got home that night, I added the red one to the tin, carefully. Like it was something sacred. I didn't realize it yet, but those stars were changing something in me. Each fold, each color, each silent wish. They were weaving themselves into my days. Into her and me. I didn't understand it yet, but I was already starting to count on them. And on her. Part 4. Stargazing in the back seat. There's something sacred about a quiet road at night. The kind that stretches past the last flickering streetlight of a sleepy town. Where the only glow comes from the moon, and the hum of the radio feels like a heartbeat. We were parked just beyond the town limit sign, where cornfields began to swallow the skyline. Elena had her feet up on the dash, fiddling with the hem of her old hoodie. She always wore that hoodie, even when the air was warm. Said it made her feel small, like when she was a kid. She looked over at me, one leg crossed lazily, her hair lit by the dashboard's amber glow. And I remember thinking, no, feeling that I'd never been more nervous in my life. Not during finals, not before my first job interview. Not even when I told my parents I wanted to be an artist. "You're quiet," she said, glancing sideways. "That's rare." I smiled, shrugging, trying to come off cool. "Just thinking about how many mosquitoes are probably watching us from the grass." She laughed, the kind that made her whole body shake slightly. Then she turned her eyes up to the stars, still smiling. "When I was little," she whispered, "I used to think stars were frozen wishes, waiting to fall when someone needed them most." I didn't say anything to that. Just watched her. The shape of her profile, the rhythm of her breathing, the smell of her cherry lip balm lingering between us. Then she leaned in. And it wasn't movie perfect. My elbow hit the gear stick, she bumped her forehead on my cheek. But we kissed anyway. And it was soft, and a little awkward, and completely perfect. When we pulled apart, she laughed again. Softer this time. Like it was a secret only we shared. "Don't look now," she said, reaching into her backpack, "but I brought a jar." I raised an eyebrow. "You carry that thing everywhere." "Only when I feel like a wish might come true." She pulled out the glass jar, half full now. The stars inside catching stray reflections from the car's interior lights. With practiced fingers, she unfolded a new strip of pastel paper from her hoodie pocket. She didn't write anything on it, just folded slowly, precisely, creasing the edges with care. When she finished, she held it in her palm for a moment, her eyes closed. Then dropped it gently into the jar. "You gonna tell me what that one was for?" I asked. She shook her head, grinning. "If I say it out loud, it won't come true." We stayed like that a while longer. The windows fogged at the corners, the air filled with crickets and some soft old love song playing through static. I don't remember what song it was. But I remember how her head rested on my shoulder, how small her hand felt in mine. That night, the stars outside the car weren't the only ones shining. Because inside that jar was a wish I didn't even know someone had made for me. And I think it changed something in me. Even though I never admit it at the time, part of me started to believe in her stars. In the idea that maybe someone could love you enough to wish the sky full for you. That night stayed with me, more than most things. More than birthdays, graduations, even that first apartment. And every time I looked at that jar in the months that followed, I wonder, which one was the wish she made after our first kiss? And what she'd whispered to it. Part 5. The one she didn't fold. We were sitting on the floor of her bedroom, knees brushing, the jar between us like a small sun, filled with stars that didn't shine but somehow still glowed. She was holding one of the strips of paper she always used, the soft lavender ones with the faint white dots. But this one wasn't folded. It was just there, resting in her palm like it was too heavy for its size. She didn't speak right away. And I didn't ask. There was something in the curve of her shoulders that told me this wasn't the moment to break the silence. So I waited. She ran her thumb along the edge of the paper. Slow, deliberate. Then looked up at me, her eyes glossy but not yet spilling. This one, she said softly. I couldn't fold it. I tilted my head, trying to catch her meaning. Did you run out of wishes? She gave a small, sad laugh. The kind that sounded like it was trying not to fall apart. Not exactly. I didn't know what to wish for. The words didn't quite make sense to me. She always knew what to wish for. She made them with the precision of someone casting spells, each fold like a spell woven with hope and half-spoken dreams. I watched her eyes dart to the jar, then back to the paper. I was going to fold it after that day at the lake, she said. Voice barely above a whisper. Ah, the lake day. The one where we spent the entire afternoon throwing stones at the water, skipping them poorly, laughing like kids. The day she fell asleep on my chest in the sun and I pretended not to notice my arm going numb. I felt something that day, she went on, finally looking straight at me. And it scared me. Not because it was bad, but because it was big. Bigger than any wish I could think to fold. I didn't know what to say to that. So I didn't say anything. She placed the unfolded paper back into the jar flat, like it didn't belong but was too important to throw away. That one's the maybe, she whispered. The wish I wasn't ready to make. Then, without warning, her lips trembled. And her hand came up to wipe at her eyes, fast and messy. I don't cry often, she said quickly, as if apologizing. It's stupid, I know. It's just a dumb piece of paper. But I knew better. It wasn't about the paper. It was about what she hadn't said aloud. What she was afraid might come true or worse, might not. I moved a little closer, my knee now fully touching hers. You can wait, I said. Quietly. You don't have to fold it yet. She nodded. Not with certainty, but with relief. Like the idea that she didn't have to know all the answers just yet gave her enough space to breathe again. And we sat like that for a long time. With the window open and the night pressing in. The summer air thick with the scent of jasmine. The jar sat on her rug, catching shadows from the ceiling light. And in the middle of all those neatly folded stars, was one simple, flat piece of lavender paper. A silent wish that hadn't yet found its shape. She fell asleep not long after, her head resting against my shoulder. Breathing soft and steady. And I remember thinking, I hope someday she folds that one. Whatever it is. Because if a person like Elena ever finds a wish too big to name, it must be something worth waiting for. And in that stillness, I realized something that made my chest ache. Not in a painful way, but in a too full kind of way. That maybe, just maybe, I was the wish she didn't know how to make. Part 6. We grew up anyway. The first letter I wrote her from college was too long and too careful. filled with stories I hoped would make her laugh. I tucked in a pressed leaf from the path outside my dorm, a tiny drawing of a coffee cup, and the words "I miss home" written in the margin. She never replied. At first, I thought maybe the mail got lost. Then I told myself she was just busy. Then I stopped writing for a while. Afraid of the silence, she sent back. But I kept the jar. I took it with me when I moved into the tiny dorm room with cinder block walls and a window that overlooked nothing. It sat on my desk beside my textbooks, its stars a quiet rebellion against the chaos of change. Each morning I'd glance at it before class, like it might offer a wish of its own. Sometimes, I'd pick one out and unfold it. Rereading the wishes she never showed me but that I could still hear in her voice. They never said anything dramatic. Just things like "hope your day's a little softer" or "don't forget to eat lunch." Simple, familiar kindnesses dressed up as magic. She didn't call on my birthday. Didn't text when I finally passed the exam. I'd failed twice. Didn't know when I stayed up all night just to feel something familiar. But still, no matter what, I kept the jar. One night, halfway through the second semester, I came back from the library to find an envelope slipped under my door. No return address. Just my name written in her handwriting. The one I used to tease her about for curling her Ys like treble clefs. Inside was a single paper star. Green with tiny constellations printed across it. No note, no explanation. Just that one folded wish. I held it for a long time before putting it in the jar. Not unfolding it. Not needing to. That was the last one she ever sent. I didn't know what it meant. Whether it was goodbye or just a reminder that somewhere, she still thought of me. But it didn't feel like an ending. Not exactly. More like a comma in the middle of a sentence neither of us knew how to finish. Years passed. New faces came and went. I graduated, moved cities, made coffee for a living until I could find something better. But the jar always came with me, wrapped in sweaters or tucked in backpacks. It outlasted apartments and old jobs and the people who never knew why I kept a glass bottle full of paper stars. Sometimes, I wondered if she still folded them. If there was another jar on a different windowsill, full of wishes I'd never see. And sometimes, only sometimes, I hoped that star she sent me, the last one, was the one she couldn't fold back then. The one that scared her. Maybe, by the time she sent it, she'd finally figured out the wish. Or maybe she just wanted me to have it, even if the words never made it onto the page. Either way, I kept it, right there with the others. Because growing up didn't mean letting go of the things that made us who we were. It just meant carrying them differently. I never told anyone about the jar. Not really. It was a story I wasn't ready to say out loud. Because as much as it belonged to me, it still belonged to her too. Sometimes, I still wonder if she ever told anyone about me. If, in her own way, she kept something too. The past has a way of softening with time. But the jar never lost its shape. It stayed glass, and fragile, and full of the quietest kind of hope. Even when we didn't speak. Even when the silence stretched for years. even when I forgot the sound of her laugh and had to remember it through old voicemail recordings. The jar stayed. And sometimes, that was enough. Part 7. The Woman at the Cafe. Years later, I found myself in a small coffee shop, tucked away on a quiet street in a city that felt both familiar and strange. The kind of place where the scent of roasted beans lingers in the air, and the hum of quiet conversations wraps around you like a soft blanket. I was waiting for my order when my eyes caught sight of a girl at a corner table, folding something with meticulous care. She wasn't much older than Elena had been back then, with dark hair pulled loosely behind her ears and delicate fingers moving rhythmically over the paper. She folded star after star, her face calm, almost meditative. It reminded me of the way Elena used to sit, her focus absolute when she was making those little paper wishes. Something about the scene pulled me in, like a thread tying me back to a past I thought I had folded away neatly in a jar on her bedroom floor. I watched her without meaning to, feeling a familiar ache swell inside me, soft, bittersweet, and tender. The girl paused and looked up, her eyes meeting mine for a brief moment. There was a softness there, a quiet understanding, as if she somehow knew the story I was carrying. I wanted to say something, ask if she knew about the stars, about wishes, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I smiled and turned away, my hands trembling slightly as I took my coffee. The jar with all those folded stars was still with me, tucked away in a box beneath my bed. Every now and then, I would open it and run my fingers over the paper, feeling the weight of hopes folded into shapes too delicate to shatter. That day, watching the girl fold her stars, I realized some wishes don't fade, no matter how much time passes. They wait patiently, like quiet lights in a dark room, ready to glow again when someone remembers how to look. I left the cafe with a heart full of memories, knowing that though Elena and I had grown apart, the stars we folded together still shone somewhere between us. And maybe, just maybe, some wishes were never meant to be folded away completely. Part 8. The Wedding Invitation. It was a rainy afternoon when the envelope came, slipping through the mail slot and landing on my doorstep like a secret I wasn't sure I wanted to hear. I almost didn't recognize the handwriting at first, the familiar curves and loops that belonged to her, the girl who had folded stars and filled a jar with wishes long ago. I stared at it for a while, my fingers tracing the edges carefully before finally tearing it open. Inside was an invitation, crisp and elegant, the kind of thing you'd expect from a momentous occasion, a wedding. And not just any wedding, but hers. The paper smelled faintly of lavender, and as I read her name printed in delicate script, a sharp sting dug into my chest. It was sudden, unexpected, and yet somehow inevitable, the closing of a chapter I thought might have lasted forever. I sat down with the invitation resting in my hands, the room around me fading into quiet stillness. Memories rushed back like a tide, her laughter in the sun, the tiny folded stars, the jar that held more than just paper but dreams and maybe even pieces of a heart. I thought about the jar, tucked away in a box beneath my bed, dusty but untouched. The stars inside seemed to shimmer faintly in the dim light, fragile yet persistent reminders of a past I couldn't quite let go. Part of me wanted to throw the invitation away, to erase the pain with silence and distance. But I couldn't. I folded the paper carefully and placed it beside the jar, as if the two belonged together, reminders of what was and what might never be again. That night, I sat by the window, the rain tapping softly on the glass, and I wondered about the wishes she had made for me, the ones she might have folded into those paper stars. Were they still alive, or had they been replaced by new dreams, new promises? I felt the weight of years pressing down, the bittersweet ache of love that didn't quite fit into the life we both ended up living. The invitation was a symbol, a quiet goodbye wrapped in elegance, and though it hurt, I held onto it like I held onto the jar, because sometimes, the memories are all we have to remind us of the stars we once wished upon. And so I kept them both, the wedding invitation and the stars, together on my shelf, silent witnesses to a story folded carefully in time, a story of wishes, love, and the spaces between. Part 9. The voice on the line. Late that night, the phone rang, breaking through the quiet like a sudden breath. I almost didn't answer it at first. Late calls usually meant trouble or loneliness, but something in the way her name flashed on the screen made me reach out without hesitation. Her voice came through the line, soft, fragile, even, like a whispered secret carried on a breeze. It wasn't the same confident laugh I remembered, nor the bold words we used to share. This voice was different, smaller, gentler, with a weight I couldn't place at first. "I never went through with it," she said quietly, and I heard a pause that spoke louder than the words. "The wedding. I couldn't do it." I was silent for a moment, trying to let those words settle. The shock was unexpected after the invitation, after the pain I thought I'd accepted. It was like finding a door left open in a house I'd long believed empty. "Why?" I finally asked, voice barely above a whisper. There was a long pause, filled with the kind of breathing that carries years of unsaid things. "Because some wishes are harder to fold than others," she said. "And some stars don't shine the way you hope." I pictured her then, somewhere far away, maybe in a small apartment filled with soft light and scattered memories of folded stars and dreams. The girl who once filled a jar with wishes was still there, but changed, maybe more honest with herself than she'd ever been. "I thought I could move on," she continued, "but I never stopped folding those stars, never stopped thinking about you." It was like hearing a song I thought I'd forgotten, a melody that tugged at my chest and stirred things I thought were settled. The silence between us was full, heavy with the weight of all the moments lost and the wishes left hanging in the air. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice breaking just a little. "For everything I didn't say. For the stars I never gave you. I kept the jar," I told her, my voice steady but soft. "Even when I thought I shouldn't. Every star, every wish, it's still here." For a moment, I could hear her breathing, slow and steady, and then she whispered, "Maybe some wishes just need time to find their shape." We stayed on the line, two voices reaching through years of silence and regret. weaving a fragile thread of hope between us. That night, the stars outside seemed to glow a little brighter, as if the universe itself was listening to the wishes still waiting to be folded. And in that quiet moment, I realized that sometimes, the hardest wishes are the ones most worth waiting for. Part 10. The rain fell in Paris. The rain started as a soft drizzle that afternoon, falling gently over the cobblestone streets of Paris. I was walking without a plan, just letting the city's charm wash over me, when I saw her standing under the awning of a small cafe, her hair damp and eyes searching the street like she was hoping for something familiar. She hadn't changed much, though time had added a quiet grace to her movements. The smile she gave me when our eyes met was soft but sure, like a secret we'd both kept locked away for too long. I felt my heart catch in my throat, that old ache stirring again, but tempered by the years and everything we'd been through. We sat down together as the rain picked up outside, the cafe glowing warm and safe around us. For a moment, we just looked at each other, words unnecessary between us. The city hummed quietly outside, a soundtrack to our unexpected reunion. "Paris suits you," she said finally, breaking the silence. "And you haven't changed," I replied. She laughed softly, a sound that still felt like home. Then, from her coat pocket, she pulled out a small, folded star, the kind she used to make, the kind I'd kept all these years. "I made this one for you," she said, placing it gently in my hand. "A new wish. One for this moment, and maybe for all the ones we lost." I held it carefully, the paper crisp and somehow more precious than ever. It was as if all the wishes inside that little star had traveled across time and distance just to find me here, in this rain-soaked city. We talked then, about the years apart, the roads we took, the mistakes we made, and the things we still hoped for. Our words flowed like the rain outside, sometimes soft, sometimes heavy, but always honest. She told me she never stopped folding stars, that they were a way to hold on to hope even when everything felt uncertain. And I realized that, though we were different people now, the connection we shared hadn't faded. It was like an unspoken promise, waiting quietly beneath the surface. The rain slowed as we stepped outside, the streets gleaming wet beneath the gray sky. We walked together for a while, not needing to say much, just sharing the moment and the small star nestled in my palm. That day in Paris, with the rain falling softly around us, I understood that some wishes aren't about fixing the past, but about finding peace in the now. And maybe, just maybe, about folding new stars together, no matter where life takes us next. Part 11. A jar full of maybes. We sat by the window in that quiet Parisian cafe, the world outside blurring with the soft patter of rain. The small jar sat between us on the table, filled with delicate folded stars, each one a tiny folded universe of light and hope. For a long moment, neither of us spoke, as if the weight of everything unsaid was pressing gently against the glass. She finally broke the silence, her voice barely above a whisper. "Do you remember why I started folding these stars?" I nodded slowly, the memories flooding back in waves, the evenings we spent together, her hands carefully creasing paper, the quiet ritual of each fold. "You said every star held a wish, and every wish was for me." She smiled, but it was tinged with something softer, more complicated. "That's what I told you, yes. But maybe it was more than that. Maybe those stars were less about wishes, and more about what I was too scared to say out loud." I looked down at the jar again, seeing it in a new light. It wasn't just a collection of hopes, but a container for the maybes, the paths she feared we might never walk, the life she longed for but never dared to ask for. "Like a life where things were simpler?" I asked. She nodded, her eyes reflecting the gentle glow of the stars inside the jar. "A life where I could be brave enough to love without hesitation, without all the doubts and fears that held me back." I folded each star hoping it would protect those dreams, even if I couldn't live them. I reached out, tracing a finger over the glass as if I could touch those fragile hopes through the surface. "I always thought the stars were for you to wish me back. But maybe you were wishing for yourself all along." She smiled softly again, a mix of relief and sadness in her eyes. "Exactly. The jar was never just about us, it was about me finding courage. And maybe, in some way, it was my way of telling you I was scared. Scared of losing you, but also scared of losing myself." We sat in silence again, the rain slowing outside, leaving a calm stillness between us. I realized then that our story wasn't just about missed chances or unspoken words, it was about the quiet battles we fought inside ourselves, the fears that shape who we are and what we dare to hope for. "Do you regret it?" I asked quietly. She looked out the window, eyes tracing the droplets racing down the glass. "Sometimes. But I also think those fears made me who I am. And maybe that's okay." I nodded, understanding that some wounds heal not by forgetting, but by learning to live with the quiet truths they carry. The jar of stars was a reminder not just of what might have been, but of the strength it takes to face the maybes and still move forward. She reached into the jar again and handed me another folded star. "For the future," she said softly. "For whatever comes next." I took it, feeling the delicate paper between my fingers, a small promise folded into that tiny shape. Maybe this time, the wishes were less about what we lost and more about what we might still find. As the rain stopped and the clouds began to part, I realized that the jar full of maybes wasn't just a collection of fragile hopes, it was a testament to the courage it takes to hope at all. And sometimes, that's enough. Part 12. The letter I never sent. I found a letter folded carefully inside an old book, the edges worn and the paper yellowed with time. It was my own handwriting, messy, rushed, and full of words I never had the courage to say to her face. Sitting there, the cafe's hum around me faded, and I was pulled back to that moment, to the raw ache of our ending. I unfolded the paper slowly, tracing the lines with my eyes, each word a window into my regret and hope. I had written about the things I wished I'd told her, how much she meant to me, how the stars she folded had become my compass, and how I'd been too afraid to fight for what we had. The letter was a confession, a fragile bridge between past and present, a testament to all the things I left unsaid. Dear you, I had started, my words trembling even on the page. I never sent this because I didn't know if you'd want to hear it, but maybe you should. Maybe it's time you knew everything I felt but never spoke. I paused, the weight of those unsent words settling over me like a fog. Reading on, I realized how much I had bottled up, how fear had silenced me. I was scared of losing you, scared of being vulnerable, scared that the love we had wasn't enough to survive the storms that came our way, I wrote. But now, I see that fear was the enemy of everything real and beautiful between us. The letter was raw and honest, filled with apologies and admissions I hadn't had the strength to voice before. I'm sorry for the times I wasn't there, for the moments I let silence grow between us. I never wanted to hurt you, but I see now how my silence did just that. The truth was laid bare, and it stung more than I expected. I wondered, as I read those words, if sending this letter back then would have changed anything. Would it have mended the fractures, or was it just a dream I clung to? Could those words have been enough to pull us back from the edge? The questions spun in my mind, unanswered and heavy. Looking back, I realized the letter was less about changing the past and more about understanding it. It was a mirror reflecting my own failures and fears, but also my love and longing. In those penned lines, I found a part of myself I had almost lost, the part that still cared deeply, despite the years and distance. I folded the letter carefully, holding it close for a moment before slipping it back into the book. It wasn't just a piece of paper, it was a key to a chapter of my life that had shaped me more than I ever admitted. The unsent letter had become a silent companion to my memories, a reminder of the love that was never fully lost, only transformed. Sometimes, I catch myself wondering what might have been, if I had been braver, if I had spoken sooner. But maybe the letter's true power lies not in changing the past, but in teaching me how to live with it. How to carry the lessons, the regrets, and the love forward, even when the stars no longer light the same sky. As I left the cafe that day, the letter tucked safely away, I felt a strange peace. The jar of stars, the folded paper, the unsent letter, they were all pieces of a story still unfolding, stories of love and loss, hope and healing. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Part 13. When she got sick. The news came unexpectedly, like a sudden storm breaking a quiet day. Elena was ill, nothing terminal, the doctors said, but serious enough to shake the calm we both thought we had found. When I heard, my heart twisted in ways I hadn't felt for years, a mixture of fear and something softer, like hope trying to push through the cracks. I didn't hesitate to visit her, even though the years and silence had built walls between us. When I arrived, the familiar scent of jasmine filled the room, mingling with the sterile hospital air, a strange comfort in the sterile coldness. Elena looked smaller than I remembered, the brightness in her eyes dimmed but still there, stubborn as ever. We sat together in silence at first, the weight of unsaid words pressing down, but slowly, the old rhythms found their way back. She reached over and pulled the small jar from the bedside table, holding it carefully, as if it were a fragile treasure. "They're still yours," she said softly, the familiar curve of her voice stirring memories like wind stirring leaves. I looked into the jar, those delicate paper stars folded with such care, each one a wish, a hope, a secret shared between us. For a moment, time seemed to pause, the past and present blending in that quiet hospital room. She smiled faintly, her eyes shining with a vulnerability I hadn't seen before. "Even now, when everything feels uncertain, these stars remind me of the life we imagined," she whispered. "They're not just wishes, you know, they're pieces of us, scattered across time." I reached out and took the jar gently, feeling the weight of years and memories in my hands. "They're beautiful," I said quietly, "and so are you." For the first time in a long while, there was a softness between us, a fragile thread reconnecting the broken parts. We talked then, about everything and nothing, about fears, regrets, and the future that suddenly didn't seem so impossible. She told me about the treatments, the hopeful signs, and the moments of doubt. I shared stories of my own struggles, the loneliness that had followed me since we parted. The jar sat between us, a silent witness to our conversation, a symbol of the journey we had taken and the path still ahead. We weren't the same people we used to be. Life had changed us both, carved new lines and softened old edges. But the connection, that stubborn spark, remained. Before I left, she pressed the jar back into my hands, her fingers lingering on mine. "Keep them safe," she said, "because they're still yours to hold." It was both a goodbye and an invitation, a promise wrapped in fragile paper stars. Walking away, I felt a strange mix of grief and gratitude. The illness had reminded us of what mattered, not the mistakes or the time lost, but the moments we still had, and the wishes folded in a little glass jar. That night, under the quiet hum of the city, I held the jar close and whispered a wish of my own. For healing, for hope, for the chance to fold new stars together. Part 14. The Last Star. The afternoon light filtered softly through the curtains, casting a warm glow over the small room where Elena sat, her hands gently resting on the glass jar filled with countless paper stars. The quiet between us was full of meaning, as if time itself hesitated, giving space for unspoken thoughts to drip freely. She reached into the jar slowly, her fingers trembling just a little, and pulled out a single star, simple, plain, white, untouched by ink or color. It felt different from the others, like a fresh page waiting to be filled with a new story. "This is the last one," she said softly, her voice carrying a mixture of hope and farewell. No words yet, no wishes written down. She held it out to me, the paper fragile between her fingers. I took it carefully, feeling the smoothness, the emptiness that seemed to invite possibility. "Why plain?" I asked, curiosity mixing with a sudden lump in my throat. She smiled faintly, eyes reflecting the soft light like distant stars. "Because this time, you get to write your own wish," she said, her voice steady but tender. "It's your turn now." For a moment, I held the star close, the weight of what she was offering settling deep inside me. The jar, the folded stars, all the wishes she had carried for us, they were a bridge between past and future, between dreams once shared and those still waiting to be dreamed. I thought about all the moments we'd lived, the roads we had taken and those we had missed. The stars in that jar were like fragments of a life that almost was, but also a reminder that there was still room for hope, for new beginnings. "Do you remember," I said, "how you used to fold each star with a wish for me inside?" She nodded, her gaze steady, a quiet strength beneath the vulnerability. "Well," I continued, "maybe it's time I made one for you too." I unfolded the star carefully, smoothing its creases with gentle hands. For a moment, I hesitated, searching for the right words to write, a wish that could hold everything we'd been through and all that was still to come. Finally, I picked up a pen and wrote slowly, the ink flowing like a quiet promise onto the paper. My wish wasn't grand or filled with lofty dreams, it was simple and true. A wish for healing, for peace, and for the chance to walk whatever days we had left, side by side. I folded the star back into its delicate shape, feeling the weight of hope in my hands. Elena reached out and took it, holding it close to her heart. "Thank you," she whispered, tears shimmering in her eyes. "This means more than you know." We sat together in silence then, the jar between us now lighter, as if some invisible burden had been lifted. The last star was no longer just a piece of folded paper, it was a symbol of our journey, a promise written in quiet ink and held by fragile hands. Outside, the world moved on, but inside that small room, time seemed to bend around us, cradling our shared moments like a gentle song. The stars in the jar were no longer just hers or mine, they were ours, each one a chapter of a story that neither distance nor time could erase. As I left that day, the jar in my hands felt lighter, filled not just with wishes from the past but with a future still waiting to be written. And somewhere deep inside, I knew that no matter what came next, the stars would always shine folded carefully in that little glass bottle, where love and hope lived on. Part 15. I sleep better now. There's a quiet comfort in the sound of rain, isn't there? The way it taps softly on the window pane, like a gentle rhythm keeping time with your heartbeat. It's something I've come to rely on lately, especially at night when the world feels heavy and the past comes creeping in. The jar, Elena's jar, is still by my bedside. It sits there, full of those tiny folded stars, each one a story, a wish, or a secret I never quite knew how to hold onto before. I haven't made my wish yet. Maybe I'm still figuring out what I want to ask for. Sometimes I reach out in the dark and touch the glass, feeling the cool smoothness against my skin, reminding me that even when things feel uncertain, some pieces of us stay safe and whole. I think that's what Elena was trying to say all along. Wishes aren't just about hoping for something to happen. They're about holding on to the love and the memories that shape us, even when life takes us down different paths. I remember the nights we spent folding stars together, how each one was a tiny promise we made, tucked away in that little bottle. She told me once, every star carried a wish related to me, and maybe that's why I feel like they carry me now. I talk to them sometimes, whispering hopes I'm not ready to say out loud. It's strange how memories work. They don't always come back clearly or all at once. Instead, they drift in pieces like the soft rustle of rain, the scent of a place you love, or the way someone looked at you when you least expected it. Those moments can be both a comfort and a kind of ache. Maybe that's why I sleep better now. Because I've learned to let those moments live quietly inside me, instead of fighting them or trying to forget. The stars in the jar remind me that love doesn't vanish just because it changes shape. It stays folded in the corners of our lives, waiting to be unfolded again. I guess what I want to say is this: sometimes, the things we hold onto aren't just memories or wishes. They're the pieces of ourselves we refuse to lose, the parts that keep us connected to the people we care about, even when they're far away. So if you're listening right now and you've got your own jar of stars, whether it's real or just in your heart, hold onto it gently. Let it remind you that love is never really gone. It's just waiting for the right moment to shine again. And maybe, just maybe, that moment is closer than you think. Until then, I'll keep listening to the rain, and holding on to my stars. Because some wishes are worth waiting for.